Hi, I'm Bernadette Keogh from mindfullivingcoach.co.uk, and today we're going to talk about our thoughts, our emotions, and how our thoughts can actually cause us more suffering. So before we start, what I'd like to do is distinguish between a real emotion and a false emotion. So a real emotion is actually our response to something that's happening right now, here in this moment. So it's a reaction to something that's real. Whereas a false emotion is actually created by our minds. A false emotion is something that's fueled by our thoughts. It's not real, so our thoughts aren't real, so it's fueled by our thoughts, and false emotions are a response to this unreal situation that we're creating in our mind. So real emotions diminish over time, whereas false emotions fueled by our thoughts can get worse and can be really dragged out for much longer than they need to be. So I like to use the example of the Buddhist sutra, the double arrow, or you could also call it the double daggers. And I'm going to apply it to an everyday situation which most people should be able to relate to. So it's when you like a boy or a girl, depending on your preference. You really like this person. They said that they're going to give you a call on a Wednesday evening at a certain time, and they don't call. So the first dagger is that disappointment that you feel when this person hasn't called when they said they would, so they've let you down. So it's a natural response to what's happened, that disappointment. But what we generally do, we start to kick in with the mind, and we might think things like, why haven't they called? Don't they like me anymore? Who are they with? So in comes a double dagger, the second dagger, which causes us even more suffering than the initial response. So our minds can actually cause us more suffering by our thought process. So when you're being self-compassionate and when you're living mindfully, what you have is an awareness of the initial emotion. So you allow yourself to feel that initial disappointment and you observe it. So you observe it from the place of the silent observer. And then you are mindful of your thoughts as well. So as soon as thoughts start to kick in that aren't going to be helpful towards that emotion, you have that space to observe the thoughts and to know that these thoughts aren't going to be helpful for you. You don't have to engage in these thoughts. So mindfulness gives you that moment to bring in the awareness that you don't have to engage with these thoughts. They're not real. They're going to cause you more suffering. So what's a better response for ourselves? To observe this disappointment, to acknowledge this disappointment. It's perfectly natural to know that this disappointment is only momentary. It's not going to last forever. And then you can start to think of, how can I apply self-compassion to this situation? How can I comfort myself from this disappointment by saying things such as, don't worry darling, he's probably just busy, or it's okay to feel sad or disappointed right now because you were excited about him calling, but we don't need the unhelpful thoughts. So what we can do when we're living mindfully, we learn to observe our emotions without the double dagger. And applying self-compassion, we can soothe our suffering. So I hope this gives a good explanation about how our thoughts and our emotions can really fuel each other, what a real emotion is, what a false emotion is, and also how when you create that space to live more mindfully, we have that time to apply self-compassion to what's happening in the moment.